Alrighty, it's time. We gotta talk about the future of Call of Duty, the future of the multiplayer, of the integration into Warzone, for really everything, for zombies, competitive COD, campaign, everything, the future of COD, and what this is gonna look like over the next few years, because we really are hitting a breaking point. We have a lot to talk about today, obviously. So without further ado, let's get right into this one. Let's go. And also the gameplay that you're seeing in this video, nothing too crazy. It's literally just some mix of pubs gameplay with some ranked play gameplay, just throwing it in there, mixing it together and having a good time with it. It should be a blast. Obviously, just a few days ago, I posted everything that I've heard about COD 2021 Vanguard. And like, truly, to be honest, before I heard any information about COD 2021, I was really nervous about what the future of COD could look like, multiplayer, competitive COD. Obviously, around here on the channel, we talk a lot about competitive COD, COD esports, and getting better and improving at Call of Duty as a whole. And so I really love this game. I want this game to succeed. I want competitive COD to succeed, and I want the CDL to succeed. So there's a lot riding on this just for me as well, just with the future of this channel and what that could look like. And so this is from the bottom of my heart, Activision. If you're listening out there, I really hope that we can figure this out together, and we're gonna go through kind of the thought process and the direction that COD might be heading. Obviously, there's 5 like big areas of Call of Duty right now. We got Warzone, we got zombies, we got the 6v6 multiplayer experience, then we've got competitive COD, and then we've got like the campaign people who really like the campaigns. Obviously, Warzone is king right now. The question is COD gonna prioritize Warzone moving forward, or is it gonna prioritize multiplayer moving forward, or is it gonna be some combination of the two? And how is this relationship going to work with multiplayer to Warzone moving forward? And how does that impact the competitive COD, zombies, campaigns, and what does that look like? Because there's a lot of question marks with how that could look moving forward. So there's a massive importance with how Warzone and multiplayer could like work together over the next few years. And so that's kind of been a big conversation for us, like we talked about on the podcast on Tuesday. So I highly recommend checking out that conversation about COD 2021 and all of the leaks and news that I heard. It's in Activision's best interest for people to care about both Warzone and the multiplayer, because right now Cold War is basically, for most people, only really seen as like the place to maybe level up some of your guns for Warzone, at least for the average, pubs person out there. That's what it is. And so there is still a very hardcore like fan base of multiplayer and just that kind of 6v6 experience. And you see that with some of the YouTubers out there that are still posting, like the Dismo or like Noisy Butters, I know post quite a bit of that, and like Carnage Clan and those types of guys. They still post a lot about the current multiplayer, but like on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult to make a video every single day about gameplays of Cold War right now, because the audience just isn't there right now. And so that's been really tough to see, is the decrease in views for the average multiplayer video on YouTube, and like seeing the tips videos this year on my channel just do so poorly versus literally every other year. It's been pretty tough. That's why there's like this like direct incentive for hopefully the benefit of multiplayer. And I have a lot of ideas for what hopefully we can make this a better experience for all of us. And so of course, money is the bottom line for Activision, right? I mean, nothing too surprising there. At the end of the day, they're trying to make their freaking money, and they're really good at that. Obviously, Warzone has been huge for them to make money and have an insane year, better than maybe any year they've ever had before money-wise. Then the question becomes like, how do you convince the average Warzone player every single year who's playing a free Warzone game to purchase a $60 COD every single year? Sure, you can have like the incentive to level up your guns, and then you can package like zombies in the campaign as like a bonus experience. So like you're playing Warzone, you buy the multiplayer to level up your guns, and then you also have zombies, and you have the campaign to play if you want. So to the average casual person, that's probably like a pretty decent deal. But then from our perspective, you've got to convince people that multiplayer is fun, interesting, and good to play. And then the next step for competitive is to convince those people that competitive is fun and good to play. And obviously, like ranked play will play a big part in that. Hopefully we can get a ranked play. We'll talk about, the wish list at the end of the video. There's still this big problem right now with feeling like you're getting ripped off when you buy the game because you're not getting a full game. Of course, back in the day, you'd buy a game and that better be a dang good game, because then there's no chance you're buying that DLC afterwards if the base game sucks. But nowadays, because the DLC is free they obviously are just pulling some of the maps away from what would be normally the original release, and then releasing them as DLC later in the year. Like if multiplayer is only launching with 8 maps in Modern Warfare and in Cold War, it's insane. It's literally mind-blowing, and they're screwing competitive COD from the start because of the lack of maps. Like it's now July and the game is now feeling like Cold War is a complete game. You've got the cool experiences. You've got now 19 multiplayer maps, which is pretty insane. A pretty big number for this time of year now. You've got to launch with more maps. You got to launch with 12 to 14 maps from the start and give the multiplayer experience a real chance from the beginning. And that also supports the competitive community because it gives you a lot of maps to choose from year in and year out. Obviously, the other option is that you just have a lot of remastered maps in at launch every single year, and then at least the competitive community can fall back on those remastered maps. Worst case scenario. And that's what happened this year, is that once Raid, once Standoff, once Express, and all of these maps got added in, then competitive was like, oh my word, please give them to us. We're playing with these maps right now. You know, that could work for like a future competitive format, but those things gotta be in the game at launch to really support competitive COD. And the bottom line is that there's things that we're gonna have to get used to with the success of Warzone. And because we just realistically, that's going to be the priority of Treyarch and the developers from here on out, is integrating the multiplayer experience and making it as beneficial to Warzone as possible so that you can have the yin and the yang, the Warzone and the multiplayer experiences to benefit from year in and year out. We're going to have to get used to a lot of the things that has a lot of success in Warzone right now, which people really enjoy the movement in Warzone. So assume that you're going to get tac sprinting every year. Assume that you're going to get gunsmith every year. Assume that you're going to get field upgrades every year from here on out. And then the rest is up for debate. So that's where it gets really frustrating, because obviously you want to go back to old school COD, but we're probably never going to have like the real Black Ops 2 experience ever again. Like if you go back and play those games, it's literally just a whole different feel than the current vibe of what, you know, Warzone is, or even what Black Ops Cold War is. The movement and all of those things is very different. And so just assume that you're going to have the slide cancels and those types of things. Very similar movement to Modern Warfare as you will in future Call of Duties. And in my opinion, if the goal is to have COD succeed and for it to be fun and enjoyable, I don't think that's that bad of a thing. The biggest problem with like Modern Warfare last year was obviously the maps were really, really bad, especially at launch. They were awful. And so like the multiplayer experience was trash. And then the competitive scene had to deal with the maps. Not only that, but the spawns were terrible. And then you had the doors to deal with. And then you had to deal with the spawns that were absolutely awful. If you can just iron out a few of those things, then suddenly you have a pretty dang good game. And it's integrated with Warzone much better. And so hopefully you'll have that crossover more, so you can have the success of Search and Destroy, and then you can start innovating the multiplayer experience. I know I've thrown out on the podcast sometimes the idea of having some sort of multiplayer game mode that's similar to Fall Guys. Like, you know how Fall Guys, if you finished in this certain half, then you'd move on to the next game. And then you'd move on to the next game. And you move on to the next game. And then eventually there'd only be like 5 people left and you're all playing. I think that could be a really cool way to integrate like competitive, or like a competitive pubs in a sense, and have like a game mode where you start out playing ground war, and then you move on to playing like some sort of smaller amount of players and a smaller amount of players. And then at the end, you're like 1v1ing or something, or 2v2ing to win the Royale or whatever you want to call it. I think that could be really cool. I don't know. There's just different ways that you can innovate the multiplayer experience to be really, really dope and have a lot of fun with it. Obviously with Cold War, I think there were some issues there with the battle royale and what happened there, because they ended up creating the fire team dirty bomb or something like that. That was a pretty big whiff. Nobody really liked it. I mean, I don't really know who plays it nowadays. I haven't really heard of anybody playing that regularly, but you know, I think my theory is that there was going to be originally like a new unique Cold War map, like a brand new map, kind of like what PUBG did with integrating like Erangel with a brand new map then. But I think they scrapped that, and then they just created the Fireteam Dirty Bomb to kind of supplement it and use what they created in some way, because it felt like a totally unput together game mode when we played it originally, like in the beta and at launch. And so that's where I have my question marks moving forward, is exactly about how that integration is going to look like. As for the future of COD and what Vanguard 2021 could look like, and why this is the pivotal moment for Call of Duty, and especially for the CDL. I mean, from the competitive COD perspective, this year, the last year and a half was really tough. I mean, we just had our first 2 LAN events back, our first LAN event back. Our second one's happening here in a few weeks, and that'll be the first one with fans back. And so the last year and a half has been really, really tough because you've had no fans at events. There's been a lot of problems with switching over to online COD. You didn't have the chance for expansion teams because the expansion teams didn't get the chance to see what LAN events would look like very, very often, at least. Or they haven't really created a good format for what LAN events could look like. And so it's scaring away expansion teams from joining the CDL. And so right now you have a lack of pros playing, and there's not a very clear way to become a pro. And so those are some of the issues that we have right now with competitive COD. Even though we've had some really great seasons of competitive COD that have been a ton of fun to watch and kind of experience throughout the year, we really need a stability now with bringing in the fans. And then we need a really banger multiplayer experience to bring the fans and the viewers in for next year to advertise that audience to the new teams that'll hopefully join the CDL, so we can get to 16 or 20 CDL teams at some point. And we need this year to be huge for the success of the CDL. If Vanguard sucks, everybody hates it, and it's literally has less viewership than Cold War does when it comes to like the multiplayer and everything, then suddenly you're in a really, really bad spot as a COD league, and what that could look like in the future. And then if Scump retires because the game absolutely sucks, then suddenly, you know, the CDL goes from looking pretty optimistic a year ago to now suddenly looking pretty pessimistic because of just the failure of this game, the lack of expansion teams, and then Scump retiring and the viewership dropping. So that's why it's insanely pivotal for the CDL for Vanguard to succeed. And then for the sake of multiplayer and the whole experience of the package that you get with Warzone, there's a world where multiplayer could just end, like where they'd just be like, not worth it. And they just double down on Warzone. They keep zombies. They maybe keep the campaign probably, and then they just see Warzone as the multiplayer from here on out. But the question is, you know, is BR a fad? Does BR stay around for the next 5-10 years as like a game that people continue to love? And I mean, we're now like what, 3-4 years into BRs being really popular, and it's still around now and thriving as much as ever. So I could see the argument for it going both ways. But as for what I think Vanguard needs for the sake of everybody, for the sake of competitive and the multiplayer, obviously ranked play at launch, everybody knows that. It needs to be in the game at launch. I'll allow at least 4 weeks for you to get ranked play into the game, and it needs to be elo based. And when you win, you move up, and the better you play, you might get some bonus points if you get some more score per minute or stuff. But the winning is what's most important, and then you get some bonus points for like leading the team in slang or playing well or objective. Basically, the format of what every other esport has in the world about some sort of system with elo based and those types of fail safes for when things go wrong in a match. That's so simple, and the things that already exist in this world, that should not be hard to make for Call of Duty, and it needs to be in the game at launch, and that is so easy to do. Besides that, again, like I said, you have to live with the gunsmith, the field upgrades, probably the tac sprinting, the slide canceling, and then probably the Modern Warfare engine from like I said, from what I heard on the video. You can go check out my full video about everything that I've heard about COD 2021 Vanguard. And check out everything on that list. Obviously, there's a lot more than that. Besides rank play at launch, no doors. Doors are just create too much chaos. Ain't worth it. Dead silence is the biggest kind of factor here, and what that could look like for multiplayer and for competitive. Competitive needs a really well thought out dead silence. Modern Warfare for S&D, the dead silence as a field upgrade wasn't too bad, but for Respawn, it was awful because it eliminated the opportunity to have CTF and then Control. Those two game modes are so much based off of like timings and playing together as a squad, where like if you can hear footsteps, you can literally just lay down in corners and camp corners, and that's so uncompetitive. And so having a more well thought out, a really, really good dead silence system is really important. Obviously, and mantling needs to be silent as well, and that's a big issue for Cold War right now, is the fact that mantling's not. Probably as a perk would be the best option. It could maybe work as some sort of field upgrade, but you'd have to tweak it like crazy where you have dead silence most of the time, not just sometimes, and you need to have it a lot, probably the biggest thing there. Then of course you need to have balanced snipers and balanced smoke grenades, and that is crucial for competitive COD, and that's something that doesn't really affect the multiplayer. Past sniping has been just fine. BO4 sniping was just fine for competitive, but in this year, the sniping with the lack of flinch and how easy it is to snipe in this game because of the lack of flinch, it made it OP and we had to GA it, and then smokes were still broken and we had to GA smokes. So we need those back. Then for the pub experience, we need map voting to be back, because it just matters. You need map voting for ranked, you need map voting for pubs. It's a good experience to let people choose what they're going to do, and then you need to be able to stay in the same lobby as the players that you were playing with in the previous game. And again, this is going to skill-based matchmaking and their whole issues with skill-based matchmaking. Again, skill-based matchmaking needs to be tuned down quite a bit. That is crucial for the success of the future of multiplayer. In the short term, SBMM worked for a little while because we didn't realize it existed. Now we all know it exists and everyone's pissed and they hate it and it ruins the experience. So you've got to tune it down like crazy. It's like you don't even have any control of how good you play because you're at the mercy of the skill-based matchmaking, the opponents that they want to put you up against, and it's insane. It ruins the multiplayer experience, and that's the biggest problem right now for multiplayer, and that leads into competitive as well. So those are some of the things. I ranted for way longer than I thought I was going to rant for, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop all your comments down below about what you think about COD 2021, and I just want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and we will see you next time. We out.